Welcome to the T-Pac Arcade. Today's game is R-Type 2 for the Nintendo Game Boy. In this 1992 shoot-'em-up from Irem and Bits, the Beto alien empire is attacking again, and just like a formulaic action TV series, you've got to stop them before they inevitably return in the next episode. R-Type has always been good at that, giving the people what they want, exactly the way they liked it before, and prompting them to stay tuned for more. Next time on Spaceships Blasting Other Spaceships, the video game trope that never dies. In R-Type 2, you fight your way through 5 biomechanically themed stages, which all feel like a natural extension of the levels from the original game. Hazard-filled corridors, turret-lined battleships, mazes created around you in real time by chain-link robots, and the relatively novel addition of a lake stage with underwater segments that slow the physics of your ship. You tackle these stages with the franchise staple Force Pod, an indestructible apparatus that can be sent out to deal damage by sitting on enemies, or attached to your ship for use as a shield and to activate power-ups, the diagonal laser, wave cannon, or ground beam. A powered-up Force Pod will only fire a standard spread shot when deployed, but I actually found this particularly useful for certain stages. I'd have the pod flank me from behind, so its position would take out enemies coming from the rear, its spread would catch enemies coming from above and below, and my own forward shot would deal with anything up front. This arrangement was so effective that the alien ships getting utterly decimated probably felt the same way I do trying to play Scrabble against my sister with her master's degree in English. The foes in this game were a nice mix of standard drones and the occasional larger, more resilient robot enemies. But the bosses were the real highlight. The first stage boss was a nice callback to the one in the original game, the second and third were cool airborne fortresses, the fourth was a clever take on a wall boss where you have to blast weak points while passing through barriers by rotating their panels, and the final boss was this big mechanical monstrosity with 2 spinning organ and embryo things. You take out one at a time as the chambers open, and I assume they must be kidneys or something, because the boss was still surviving just fine and putting up a good fight without both. But then again, the same could be said for plenty of dual-sided organs. I mean, I've managed to get along just fine with half a brain my whole life. Visually, I love how R-Type 2 manages to translate its complicated graphics through the Game Boy's modest capabilities. The sprites are all big, but the game is laid out to prevent the action from getting too cramped as a result. And the stage elements still have enough definition that you never get confused about what you can and can't fly through, even against a textured background. The sound design is equally great. I love the sci-fi vibe of the stage tracks and the ominous ambient drone that accompanies each boss encounter. The sound effects are awesome too, especially the missile noises. Your missiles must be fluent in Spanish or something, because they roll their R's on impact. Brrr. It just sounds so destructive and satisfying. The most novel aspect of this game is probably how easy it is, considering the R-Type franchise is known for its merciless difficulty. For example, the mid-stage checkpoints are all designed to get you back up and running with quick power-ups, and even when you lose all your lives, you get unlimited continues from the same exact spot you left off on. I kept wondering what the catch was, but I guess the designers were like, you know what? I bet that someday 30 years from now, there's gonna be some hopeless, uncoordinated nerd playing our game who really loves shoot-'em-ups but really sucks at them. Let's do that guy a solid and make this one easy for a change. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. My favorite thing about R-Type 2 is probably its length. At just 5 stages, it makes for a nice, quick play session. There's enough content to keep me engaged without demanding half my Saturday free time, which is great because I have to take myself for a walk in the afternoon, or else I get cranky and start chewing on the couch cushions. If I could change one thing about the game, I'd true up the Force Pod mechanics to be more like other R-Type titles. Here, when you press the action button to dock the pod on your ship, it'll go just slightly in front or behind you, but it won't actually reattach until you nudge yourself towards it. It's such a small detail, but it's frustrating when you start flying around again, only to realize the Force Pod is still drifting, and you can't readjust it now that you're trying to dodge a bunch of incoming fire. It's like realizing your shoe is untied as you rush to line up for Bagel Monday at work. If you stop to reattach the pod in R-Type, you'll get disintegrated. And if you stop to tie your shoe at work, all the blueberry bagels will be gone. These are life or death scenarios here, and minor inconveniences will not be tolerated. Overall, R-Type 2 was a joy. It was one of the most laid-back playthroughs I've ever experienced, and I think the game is so much better for it. It's hard to say whether I like this entry better than the first Game Boy port of R-Type, but they're both top-tier shooters in my book.